You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. Join Steve and his guests every week as he staggers from Georgia to Maine.
Hi everybody, and thanks for sticking with me on Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. We're up to episode number 128, and with due respect to all of our great recent guests, this week we have the chance to hear from somebody who, at the end of December, completed an astonishing achievement only ever done before by less than 10 people. How do I know that? Well, Tyler Lau, the Prodigy, became number 10, so that must make it so. We're going to hear from Tyler in a moment, so make sure that you have a cup of coffee handy and your ears ready to be amazed. I'm still in Spain. I'll be returning to Florida next week, and any preparations I've made for my upcoming AT through hike have been merely theoretical. I'll only be able to put my hands on items and make an informed choice once I go to a really top outfitter. We have a couple in my hometown, so I'll certainly go there first, but I thought I'd also go to REI in Orlando, which is about a 2-hour drive from my hometown. My part of Florida seems to be kind of underserved by REI, but I think the effort is likely to be worthwhile. Actually, I think I mentioned last week, or maybe the week before that I'd reached out to Z-Packs on the other coast of Florida to see if I could come and see them, perhaps buy some gear and maybe even interview them. Somewhat disappointingly, I didn't hear back from them other than an automated response, so I've reached out again and still hope to do that. I'll probably combine the Orlando trip with Z-Packs and stay overnight there. Anyway, I'll be updating you on any progress I've made, even if most of it is in my mind, after we hear from Tyler. Finally, we'll be having at least 2 chapters a week now to finish up our reading of The Year We Seize the Day by Elizabeth Best and Colin Bowles. My niece Laura, now well into her pregnancy, is gamely locking herself up in her closet to record these last chapters. I think she's having as tough a time as Ellie, though, of course, nowhere near as tough a time as Colin. Now, after all of that, let's settle back and be awed by the Prodigy, Tyler Lau. Here's Tyler. Okay, I'd like to introduce a very special guest. This is Tyler Lau. How are you, Tyler?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Steve, and thank you for having me on this podcast.
My absolute pleasure. And the reason it's my pleasure, because you've just done something bloody extraordinary. You've just achieved something at the end of December. I think it was 29th or 30th of December. What did you do?
Yeah, well, I decided to do a calendar year triple crown of hiking last year, and that means I completed the Pacific Crest Trail, the Continental Divide Trail, and the Appalachian Trail all in a calendar year.
Firstly, that's extraordinary. How many miles is that in total? It's about 8,000?
It's just under 8,000. I'm still going through my notes to do the calculations. It's a little different on the CDT since it's not all the way built. So I took a few alternates and I'm trying to figure out that mileage.
This is very recent. So, and I've got a bunch of other questions, but how are you feeling right now physically?
To be honest, I went to the gym this morning, so I'm doing okay. My body, I think, is healing up, and overall, I feel great. I definitely haven't been hiking since I've been back. So,
really? Good Lord.
Yeah.
I mean, because I was looking on Facebook, and and reading, because I'm afraid I have to do this cyber stalking thing every now and then when we've got guests. So I was reading about, how you're almost getting yourself back involved in society. And I know that feeling, even though I only ever did the AT. But for you particularly, getting reabsorbed into society, that must be tough as well. Did you manage that, or did you find that difficult when you first got back?
I think I'm still dealing with it a little bit. Having hiked by myself for so long, and the only person I can really talk to is myself most of the time.
Yeah,
I think I'm going at it a little slowly, but I've seen a few friends since I've been back, so that's helped.
Right. Well, we're going to come back to a bit of that anyway. But now, what the reason why I wanted to, I said it was an amazing achievement, which it is. How many other people have ever done a calendar year Triple Crown?
So before 2018, only 5 people had done it. Last year, I became the 10th person to do it. So 5 other people, including myself, did it last year. And then
Really?
just 2 or 3 days ago, my friend Pathfinder finished, and I'm going to count his as a calendar year triple, even though he finished in 2019, but he started in 2018. So 11 now.
So when did you actually start yours? When was the and we'll go into each one individually in a minute, but when was your very first step on this 8,000-mile journey?
So I did mine a little unconventionally due to weather and injury circumstances, but I started on the PCT April 2nd or 3rd. I would have to go back into my notes and look at that.
So you've literally done this in less than 8 months.
Less than 9 months, I think.
Of course, yes. Well, even then, it still sounds pretty damn good to me. As someone who never did more than 100 miles in 1 week, that seems a lot of miles for me. So it's extraordinary. So why did you decide to do this? Was there something within you that you felt the need to do it, or was it just a challenge was there? You thought you'd have a crack at it?
I think there were a few factors that went into it. One of them, yes, there was the challenge part and wondering if I could physically, mentally, and spiritually do something like this. 2, I'm Asian American, and I've worked in the outdoor industry for 10 years now, and I've noticed there's not a lot of diversity in the outdoors, and
Indeed,
that can be a whole different podcast episode, but that was something I wanted to do something about. And I realized if I wanted to do something about it, I needed to put a different face out there. And I reluctantly decided my face would have to do for now. But yeah, that's a big passion of mine, is just to make the outdoors more diverse, inclusive, and make people aware that.
Where are you from? You're American?
I am. I'm a dual citizen of Hong Kong as well, but I am an American citizen. And thirdly, my cousin was recovering. He'd been in a coma for months in 2017. He woke up in 2018, and right before I decided to do this trip, I went and saw him, and he couldn't talk or walk, and that really hit me in the gut. That I'm physically able to do these things that we take for granted. To be able to wake up every morning and stand up. And that got me thinking, what can I do? And I decided if I try this crazy hike, I could raise some money for not only him in his recovery efforts, but also for programs and organizations that work with diversity in the outdoors.
Yeah, and I'd like to talk about that because I as soon as I see the expression GoFundMe, I think, oh God, my heart sinks a little bit, because normally people start a GoFundMe account to pay for the hike for them, but this wasn't for you, was it? Tell us about 8,000 miles to 8,000 smiles, which I think is a fantastic name, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I hiked the PCT for my first time in 2016, and during that hike, I did a fundraiser, and it was called 2660 for YWCA and NCBI, which were 2 organizations in Montana who I'd volunteered with. And one of them works with girls ages 6 to 13, bringing them on wilderness trips to, build their leadership skills, self-confidence, team building. And I thought, that's amazing. I want to see more stuff like that, especially in this day and age. So that got me thinking, well, if I'm going to do this hike that's 3 times, 4 times as big, I guess we'll just come up with a name that's similar, but I didn't know the exact mileage I was going to do. So 8,000 seemed like a good number, and 8 is a lucky number in Asian cultures. So I figured that would help. But yeah, but my goal was to raise $1 for every mile I walked, roughly.
You're at your target, aren't you? I was looking at it on GoFundMe, and I was looking at you've had some recent donations as well, so people are still contributing. So, and hopefully, I'm going to leave a link in the show notes at the end of this to make sure that people see it if they want to contribute. So I think it's a great thing you're doing. So tell us about these charities. Then you say you want to support, obviously, your cousin. What happened to him?
That's more of a family
Okay,
thing that
fine.
they want to keep private, and
Absolutely.
but
Absolutely. Yeah, sure.
he is still going through physical therapy. He still can't walk or talk yet, so
All right.
it's an uphill battle. But yeah, I wanted
Okay.
to donate at least a
Sure.
quarter of what I raised to his efforts to
Right.
recover. And as far as the charities go, some of them will be organizations that work to protect our public lands as well. So last year
Right.
was the 50th anniversary of the National Scenic Trails Act,
Sure.
which pretty much created the AT, the PCT, and the CDT. So that was really important to me as someone. I worked for the PCTA in 2017, giving back to the trail that gave me so much.
In 2016. Yeah.
So some of the funds are going to go to them, and then other organizations. I had mentioned YWCA in Montana before, and I'm going to send some funds to them again because I really respect that program that they do
Okay.
called Guts, Girls Using Their Strengths.
What a great name. What a great name. Guts.
Yeah,
Girls using this. I've never heard that before. That's excellent.
yeah, I know. I wish I had more marketing and brand strategy ideas
Huh.
like that for my fundraising. That there's a few other organizations I haven't nailed down all of them, but
Right.
I do want to focus on organizations that are in the states of the trails that I was able to walk. So at least one from every trail. So Montana being part of the CDT, I'm focusing
Yeah.
on Guts. And then out west, I'm looking at a few in the LA area because I grew up around there. And
Right.
then out east, I'd volunteered with a program in New Hampshire when I lived out there.
So you've got hiking in your blood, I guess. You've been doing this for a while now. Have you done? You say you've done the PCT. Is that the only long distance trail? Or have you been hiking long distance all your life?
The PCT in 2016 was my first, what you would call long distance hike. I've been
Right.
backpacking and done many hiking trips, but nothing to the extent of months at a time up to that
Right.
point.
Okay. Well, interesting. You mentioned earlier on about diversity on the trail, and I know people always roll their eyes when I talk about this myself. This is a very much, it seems to me, to be a very much lack of diversity. Yeah, I noticed when I was out, I did the Camino this year, which I know is nothing like any of the hikes you've done, but the Camino in Spain, and there were tons of Korean people out there. Literally, I would say 40% of the people on the trail on the Camino this year were Korean people. So maybe people are starting to go outdoors.
Yeah, no, that's a great trend, and I think there is more of a push in the last few years. I
Yeah,
just noticed on the American trails that I've hiked
yeah,
that there's certain demographics that you do not see
yeah,
ever.
yeah, yeah. I think you're right. Yeah. So who gave you the amazing trail name Prodigy, which is a great name?
You know, there is a couple called The Graduate and T Rex who I ended up meeting in 2016 who named me the Prodigy because they had been hiking the PCT 30 miles a day from the get go because they'd trained for 6 months. And I just happened to be able to keep up with them because I, met them one day and was like, hey, you guys seem cool. Can I just follow you? And because I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And after a few failed trail names, that was the first one that they gave me that I wrote down in a trail log. And coincidentally, they finished their calendar year Triple Crown a few days before I did.
Oh, really? Oh, cool. How nice is that? So, how did you choose the order? You decided you wanted to do the Triple Crown. Is there a way to do this that meets the weather, or is this how you thought about it? That you're going to do is it PCT first, then the CDT, and then the AT?
No, it does go back to weather. So in
Uh-huh.
February and March of 2018, when I was looking at this, I was talking to Graduate and T Rex about it, and we all decided
Right.
one day we were going to do it. And at that point on the Pacific Crest Trail, there was very little to no snowpack in the Sierras, which was
All right.
very odd.
Yes. When was that? When did you go through the Sierras?
Well, I went through in June, but
Right.
all that snow that wasn't there in February came in March and April.
All right.
So all the
Okay.
people that got into the Sierras early thinking there wasn't going to be any snow, well, that changed really quick. So we had initially thought we were going to do the PCT all the way through,
Right.
but we decided to go do the CDT in southern New Mexico because we knew there wasn't snow there.
Right.
And Graduate and T-Rex had actually just finished the CDT a few months before, so that was fresh in their minds.
Right.
And we figured that would be a good section to knock out. And to go back briefly, I know I'd mentioned I'd started on the PCT. I did a test hike in April at about 160 miles because I'd been injured for 2 weeks before that. So yeah. I actually couldn't bear weight on either foot, and the doctor completely took me off physical activity, which scared the living crap out of me because I thought my hike was done. But after my 2 weeks off, I told myself, go try this test hike. If you can't do this, then you know for sure. But I was able to do it, and was actually able to do my first 40-mile day after 2 weeks off. So
wow,
I figured
40-mile day. Oh my gosh, man!
Yeah.
Have you always been a fast hiker? Because that is tons of miles. Or do you just hike all day long?
Yeah. I mean, at that point, I was still recovering, so I was hiking from when I got up until dark. But it's also on the PCT for folks that haven't hiked it. The grade is a lot different than the AT. So, you can make more miles also because of the daylight you have.
And sure. And which trail you've just done 3 trails. They're all fresh in your mind, I presume. Which trail gave you the most difficulty this year? And did the familiarity you had with the PCT, do you think that helped you?
To answer your first question, the Appalachian Trail gave me the most difficulty. And really? As far as the PCT, I was very familiar with it. So it helped me a lot.
Right. Okay. So it gave you the most difficulty. Interesting. Is that because of the amount of pointless ups and downs, I call it?
Yeah, there is a lot of that. And I knew that going in, but also last year, according to the ATC, who I talked to at Harper's Ferry, it was the wettest year on record on the AT.
Nice.
So
that's always pleasant, isn't it? So when did you? So if you finished the AT at the end of December, when did you start the AT?
When did I start, or where did I start?
When did you start it?
October 1st.
Oh man, that's ridiculous. That is extraordinary. Oh dear me. And one of the things I was thinking about today when I was trying to put some questions together, because I just think this is a remarkable feat. How did finishing each trail feel, given that you had to go again on another trail? Because I know how I felt. There is a rhythm to hiking, isn't there? The rhythm to when you do a through hike, and once you get to the end of a hike, that's the end of your hike. But with you had to go somewhere else again. How did it feel once you completed each trail?
That is a great question. And that is a feeling that not many people get to feel.
Yes.
I will go back to my first hike to preface it. In 2016, when I finished the PCT, it was, it caught me off guard because I wasn't expecting the terminus. I wasn't really paying attention the last 2 miles. I was kind of humming along and singing to myself. And then I get there and was like, whoa, that's it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Like 4 months and 2,000 plus miles. And that's what I was aiming for the whole time. Man, don't know how to put that into words.
Yes, I'm sure.
Flash forward 2018, finished the PCT first of the 3 trails.
Yeah.
They had just installed a new monument at the northern terminus 2 days before, which was really neat, really cool to see. But I got there and it was odd because, yes, I was kind of excited because I just finished this trail that I love.
Exactly.
But kind of like you mentioned in your question, I had to prepare for the next trail. I didn't get time to soak it in and enjoy it. I kind of, took my photo shoot at the terminus as everybody does. And then like, okay,
what's next?
How do I get to the CDT now? And
yeah. Do you know what? And the more I thought about that today, I thought that must play with your psyche a little bit. Unless, I guess, you break down your hike as a full-on year-on Triple Crown, unless you use that mental image that this is only a third of the way through. And that's a disappointment. That would be a disappointment to me that the ending of a trail wasn't the end of a trail, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it wasn't so much disappointment for me as much as just anxiety of how do I get to this next spot? Because for me, mentally, I can't look at the end of something like a long trail if I just start. I have to break it down to how do I get to the next water source? How do I get to the next town? How do I get to the
Sure.
next resupply? How do I get to the halfway point? How do I get to the next state? Because California on the PCT is a very long state. And had I started thinking about the terminuses or the monuments at each trail, I think I probably wouldn't have tried it. I probably would have
Yeah.
left the trail early. And that was really hard at points, especially on the AT. But up to that point on the PCT, heading into the CDT, I just kept thinking, I love the Washington section of the PCT. I want to enjoy this,
Right.
but I know I have to make a few more miles tonight. And I can't sit at this beautiful lake and watch the sunset.
That's kind of sad. I mean, you're going for a massive achievement and you achieved it. Good for you. But and it's also great you've done the PCT before. So you've done it for pleasure. And now you've done it almost for a physical challenge, haven't you? And to raise money. So, but it is different, isn't it?
It's a very different way of hiking. And I've said this before to people I've met on the trail. I don't recommend this style hiking unless maybe if you want to try a calendar year triple, but maybe also start a little earlier than I did.
Yeah. Now, people on this show know that I will only go from south to north on the Appalachian Trail, because I'm going again this year on the Appalachian Trail for my second through, hopefully, of the Appalachian Trail. And I've always imagined that finishing at Springer would be a major disappointment. But for you, it was the end of your hike. What was it like for you going up that path right at the end at Springer?
It was really weird. I saw the 1 mile to Springer Mountain sign, and that's when it really started sinking in a little bit of, wait, this is what I've been aiming towards.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And I've had so many ups and downs, literally and figuratively, on the AT especially, where I almost dropped out. And I don't remember exactly the mileage from that first shelter you see when you're going north. It's right past Springer.
Yes, that's right.
I stopped there, and
it's about 300 yards.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And I told myself, stop, think about this a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, just soak this in, because
take it in. Quite right.
You don't know what's going to happen when you get to the summit. And
yeah.
The previous week or so, I'd had moments throughout my days thinking about Springer. I didn't want to, but it was really hard not to, having been out for 8 months. And when I was thinking about it, I would actually tear up a little bit. And then I'd have to stop myself. Like, no, if you're going to do that, you're going to do it on top of the mountain.
Yes.
And
did you?
Well, here's the funny thing. As I was standing there, I filmed myself. I had to document it. Like, hey, I don't know how to feel right now. This feels really weird. This feels kind of like a dream. And then this family walked by. We said hi, and then they stopped right after they passed me. I'm like, hey, you wouldn't happen to be the Prodigy, would you? I'm like, wait, yeah. And they're like, oh, your friend's waiting for you up there. I was like, oh, sweet, thank you. And they congratulated me. And this was before the finish. And I'm usually really picky about that, I guess. When people congratulate me before I get to the finish, I'm like, oh, no, I'm not there yet. Because they do that all the time on every trail.
I've only done 7,999 miles.
Yeah, but I'm not there yet, but I'm so close. I'm like, okay, you're practically there. And I get to the top, and my friend Kashmir, who I'd met on the CDT, met me at the top. And I wanted to let all the emotion out, but it just wasn't there for that moment. I think something, I don't know if it was all the people that were up there. It was kind of busy up there, and it didn't feel real,
I'm sure. Yeah. I'm absolutely sure. And say I've thought about this all day, how you would process that, and it really is so much to process. Did you have many tough, potentially hike ending falls, or are you a hiker who just doesn't fall?
Falls?
Yeah, because I fall all the time. all the time.
I had a few falls on the PCT and CDT, but nothing major. And then on the AT, my goodness, I think I fell every day in New England. And
Good. I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't help with all the precipitation. New England's hard enough when it's dry, but when all the rocks are wet and the roots are wet, it's not safe. And
those roots suck, don't they?
Yeah, any sort of angle, not to walk on it. But I don't know if there were any serious falls. I think it was more in New England. I actually got hurt. My right thigh
Right.
felt like it was going to explode, and not in a good way.
Yeah.
And I'd never felt that sharp of pain before. And this was literally right after I crossed the New Hampshire Maine border. So after
Wow.
Mahoosic Notch and everything, it was fine. But I think it was the downhills that just added up, and how cold it was. It was snowing, and
Yeah.
yeah, I really thought about it when I went to Gorham. I took some time off and was thinking, what if this is it?
Yes, that must have been terrible. That must have been awful to think that. You'd done 6,000 miles already. You still had 2,000 to go, by the way, at that point, didn't you? So you still had a heck of a lot to do. Did you have any injuries that nearly did knock you out of the trail? Or was there nothing that took you off more than a day or so?
No, that was the big one, my thigh. I had to take I took 2 days off, and then
Right.
Hurricane Florence came up to the Whites, which didn't help my case. So I actually ended up going around the presidentials on the road because it was 100+ mile per hour gusts up top.
Wow.
And, I, as much as I wanted to finish, I didn't want to die to finish. So,
Well, there is that. Yeah. Good thinking, by the way. Yeah.
yeah.
What was of all these 8,000 miles, these last 8 months, which, you've just been hiking all the time, what was your best day?
Oh, wow. That's the best day, huh?
Where you got in your tent that night, or I don't know, you go and hammock, whatever you do, but you finished the day, you're sitting there thinking, man, that was epic.
That is another great question. I'd have to think about that. It was probably somewhere on the PCT is my guess.
Right. Okay. Well, you know what? One day we're going to get you back on. So I want you to process it first before we can really have that conversation about that as well, because I'm sure you're going to be doing this. Because the next question was going to be, what was your worst day?
Oh,
Was the worst day right in Gorham when you thought it could be over?
that was pretty bad. Just everything seemed to be coming all at once, like the injury, the weather, then the hurricane, and I just wasn't having fun. I remember talking to a few friends on the phone, just I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Like this is more than just the grind of a job. There's misery that, yeah, every person goes through some sort of misery on a hike, but I've already done 2 trails and I'm on what is the hardest one now.
Don't you think, though, Tyler, that this is an important part of the hike? It's that moment where your fortitude comes through, when you have to decide you have to push through it, isn't it? That I mean, what am I doing talking to you about it? You've done this, but there are those moments when you think, oh my God, I just can't do this anymore.
Absolutely. I think it's extremely important that people go through that, because if you can make it through that, you can make it through a lot more. And I'd had a few, tinier moments such as those on the other trails, but I think that was a very defining moment, especially during the road walk around the presidentials.
Of course, yeah.
I remember getting really close to Crawford Notch and thinking, I had this feeling that I was done. I was over it. And I remembered going into my phone and trying to call a few people, but it was maybe like 1 p.m. Eastern time. And I was trying to call people on the West Coast, and no one picked up, because that makes sense, because it's a weekday and it's 10 over there. So they're at work. And then I tried calling people on the East and thinking, oh, wait, they're at work. They're not just walking, because that's all I'm doing. And no one picked up. And at first I was angry, but then I realized it was kind of a blessing, because at that point I just needed to say I was done to someone to make it valid.
Yeah, good.
But I continued, ended up taking a few more days off here and there, and kept going. But that was a big moment, because in my gut I was ready.
I tell you what, man, I'm pleased, and I want my listeners listen to this and listen to different people's stories. They listen to old guys like me who hike, and you're a young guy and you've done this epic journey, but even you nearly quit. So there's something you have to pull out of yourself that you don't know is within you, isn't it? You just do something because you just feel you have to do it, I'm kind of glad you had the same problems we all had as well. Did you need to make? And I thought about this as well. Did you find that the different hikes, the different trails required different equipment. And so did you make many gear changes, or did some of your stuff just wear out after about 8,000 miles?
Yeah, the PCT and the CDT were pretty similar. I didn't really switch out much except when I went into the Sierras, sending yourself a bear bin or a bear canister. And I switched to a different pack because at that point I was using more of an ultralight pack.
Right.
So I switched to a pack with more capacity just so I could carry more. And as far as the weather is concerned, the first 2 trails, I can count on one hand how many days I got rained on. So,
oh, really?
Be lucky.
I would think, yeah.
But
I would think.
I think my chips were running out when I got to the AT because I can count on one hand or 2 hands how many days I didn't get rained on. So,
oh dear.
But I realized that was also one of my issues when I was hiking in New England. I didn't have enough layers.
Right.
I was still in my summer hiking mode and had to rethink it when I got to New England. And
I'm sure if you started the trail in October, yeah, it's cooling down by then, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was more of like an early winter according to all the locals I met. And I was like, oh, of course, nice. Why not?
Yeah, special treat. Yeah. How nice is that? Yeah. And now you've done this and you did the PCT before. If you were going to do one just for the pleasure and not for the physicality of the challenge and that sort of thing, which of those trails, which would you choose to do as one you'd really like to enjoy?
I talked a lot about this with Graduate and T-Rex and Pathfinder as well, that we would do this luxury tour of the PCT where we didn't have to do so many miles a day. We could camp at all these spots that we missed, like the ridges, the lakes, the rivers. And I would get myself a room at Timberline Lodge, no matter how much it cost. And that for me, I think is still the trail that I'll always love. And I would like to go southbound if I ever do it again.
Oh, really?
And people ask me all the time if I'm going to do another long trail. And I vary day to day. Like, I don't think I'm not going to, but it's so early in the process as I'm processing this.
I'm sure. In fact, one of my questions, and I've got 2 more questions to ask you. One of my questions, and I laughed when I wrote it. Do you actually like hiking?
I do, and that was part of it on the AT where I was having trouble. Was I wasn't enjoying a lot of it.
I thought that was the case. I thought that, and I think after that period of time, I think everybody who goes on these trails does it because they really want to do it. 8,000 miles is a long, long way, and I'm sure physically you were beaten up anyway, weren't you? I mean, I'm sure you were getting fitter and fitter because you were stronger and stronger, I guess. But really, you must have been exhausted at right near the end, weren't you?
Yeah, I was beat, but I think it's the mental part that a lot of people don't realize that long distance hiking takes on you. And the mental beating that I was taking, especially on the last trail, was really wearing me down. And again, reaching those points where I thought I was done. There was another point down the trail where I just kept thinking, maybe I'm done. Like, I'm really not enjoying this, and I don't want to ruin my love for hiking.
Right. Yeah. And that was, I can see that being a problem, and yeah, I'm glad I actually asked it. I was thinking of not asking it, but yes. So you've got your love back, I presume. You've got the love of hiking back, and so what do you think you can achieve next? Is there another hiking achievement you've got your eye on, or you just want to see how you feel in a couple of months' time, or even a year's time?
Yeah, I do think about that sometimes. I think there's this big trend towards fastest known times, and part of me thinks, oh, that'd be kind of neat. The other part of me thinks, well, I want to enjoy hiking, so that's not going to be enjoyable, so why bother?
Yeah.
But it's hard to say. I don't know if I had a lot to prove in the first place, but again, I'm big on trying to get this long distance hiking community more diverse. So I think for me, the goal right now is to really push for that and, become a catalyst for change.
That's great.
And as far as another accomplishment in the hiking world, I think I've done enough up to this point, but I also never set out to do a Triple Crown, to be honest. To go back to the question you asked of if I was going to do another trail,
Yeah.
I actually never wanted to do the AT, to be honest. And it was a joke in 2016 that the only way I would do it is if I did a calendar year triple. So there we have it.
Do you like being by yourself? Because you must have spent a heck of a long time being by yourself, because you weren't in any of the bubbles, were you, I presume?
No, not really. I mean, I met the entire southbound contingent on the PCT because I was finishing when they were starting.
Right.
And pretty much all the northbounders on the CDT. And when I say a northbound CDT bubble, it's not a lot, but I saw almost zero people on the AT southbound. I mean, I saw the tail end of the northbounders at Katahdin and the 100-mile wilderness, but as far as folks going southbound, I can count again on one hand how many true southbounders I met.
Wow. So you really are reintegrating into society and meeting people again, I presume. Which is
and there's that sense too of folks that go out and do these hikes is there are days I really enjoy just walking by myself.
Yeah.
And there's other days it'd be nice to have someone else to talk to.
Well, look, I reached out to you and I said, look, even if you don't want to do the show, I think it's an awesome achievement, and I truly do. So I'm grateful that you said you do the show, and I'm really pleased we had you on. But I'm in awe of you, man. I think that's just a great achievement, and congratulations. And I just hope you achieve your goal of getting more people and a more diverse trail, because that's best for everybody.
Yeah, no, and thank you very much for having me on the show, and hopefully folks enjoy listening to this.
Okay, buddy. Well, thanks so much, and take it easy, and hopefully I will catch up with you again sometime. Well, I'll never catch up with you, of course, but hopefully we'll speak again sometime, okay?
Yeah, will do. Thank you.
Cheers then. Bye. What a guy, eh? 8,000 miles in 9 months. And he did it because he wanted to introduce diversity into the outdoors. And I was struck by how modest he was about his own volunteerism. He doesn't just talk the talk, he really, really walks the walk, with a variety of different charities benefiting from his awesome adventure. And he's so understated about it. He told me later that he hadn't been expecting the question I asked him about what it must be like to finish one trail and go straight on to the next. I've had the chance to think more about that since the two of us spoke, and I'm sure that even if I had the physical capability, which I don't, I wouldn't want to do that. There's something about celebrating your achievements that form part of, well, at least part of my psyche as a hiker. I think that you have to stand back from that achievement and, well, kind of revel in the glory of it. Don't worry, your family and your mates will soon have had enough, so enjoy it while you can. It was great talking with Tyler, and I hope that you enjoyed his story as much as I did. Funnily enough, while I've been writing this for the show, Z-Packs have come back to me, and after an exchange of emails, I'm going for a fitting on February the 5th. How about that? So now we're on to my preparations for the AT. I'm going to share some of the emails I've received, as well as a voice message from a friend of the show, Jash, or Just a Section Hiker. Apparently, the various Osprey packs feature heavily on the AT. I took my Volt 75 on the Camino, so they must be in the consideration list. Here's Jash.
Hey there, Mighty Blue. This is Jash. I'm a longtime follower of your podcast and really love the work you do. You had requested a suggestion as far as a pack. I love my Osprey 58L. It's the fourth pack that I've used in hiking on the Appalachian Trail for 27 years. It's a very lightweight pack. It allows me to carry 3 liters of water, a tent, sleeping pad, sleeping bag, and all the gear that I need to have. It's designed to carry about 25 pounds of gear, and I've carried more than that and loved it. So anyhow, when you're evaluating packs, it may be one that you want to consider. And all the very best of luck to you in your 2019 through hike. Hike on, brother. Jash out.
I love that. Jash out. By the way, Jash kindly wrote a review for the first volume of my AT books, and it was so nice. He even offered to let me make some changes, though I didn't suggest any. So the Osprey 58L is, I think, the Exos 58. It's about 2.5 pounds and just over $200. When I think that my Gregory in 2014 was over 5.5 pounds, there's a saving straight away. I'll certainly be trying that one on. I'm a little concerned about quite how much it will carry, though it might impose some discipline on me as I make my choices of what to take for the hike. Thanks a lot, Jash. I also had a message from Dr. Lynn. Do you remember Dr. Lynn? She says that she used to have an Osprey Aura 65, but that it was too tall for her petite frame, so she found a Gossamer Gear Gorilla bag on sale and uses that instead. I think it's a bit small for me, but the reason I wanted to mention Lynn's email is how she uses this pack. Lynn says, the only thing is it is one big empty bag with very few separate pockets, so I changed how I pack. After much deliberation of how to arrange my gear, I came upon the system of... This makes me laugh. Where would I find this item in my house? I now pack by room. Bedroom, kitchen, bathroom, office. I use lightweight, dry stuff sacks and I have a different colour for each room. I look at a piece of gear and say, where would I find this if I were at home? And then I put it in that stuff sack. The bedroom stuff sack holds my clothing. Bathroom stuff sack holds my toothbrush, hairbrush, floss, toothpaste, camp soap, towel, toilet paper, etc. The office sack holds my journal, phone charger, pen, reading book, cash, ID, etc. Kitchen stuff sack holds all of my cooking equipment except for my stove. I love that, Lynn, though. For me, it will be a completely useless system. I have no idea where anything was in any house I've ever lived in, so I'd never find anything. I must say it was the multitude of accessible pockets that originally sold me on the Gregory in the first place. In the end, even I was able to find what I needed pretty much as soon as I needed it. By the way, before I move on from Dr. Lynn, she also sent me this email regarding a recent show that we did. Hi, Mighty Blue. I recently listened to episode number 123 with your guest, Jessie Gregor. I enjoyed her discussion of the ketogenic diet. The explanation was well done, accurate, and easily understood for layman's terms. As a medical provider, I recommend this episode to anyone interested in understanding the science behind the ketogenic diet. They will be able to gather a clear, concise knowledge base of this nutritional option. I was so pleased to get that. Jessie's keto diet isn't for everybody, and Jessie said that throughout the conversation we had. But it's great to have this from a medical professional. Thanks so much for that, Lynn. I've sent Jessie a copy. Next, we have a pro-Z-Packs and an anti-Z-Packs email. Lisa Rana, who is going to be on an episode in a few weeks' time talking about the Grafton Loop Trail, is all in on Z-Packs. Lisa says, I have the Z-Packs duplex and I love it. In fact, she loves it so much, she capitalised love it. It makes so much sense. You are carrying trekking poles anyway, so it's easy to set up. The vestibules are large, it has 2 doors, no need for a ground cloth, and it's light. And she also has a Z-Packs pack. She says, as far as the pack, I also have the Z-Pack Arc Zip or something like that. I think she means the Arc Blast. And I ordered the brain and the side pocket netting on one side and it worked excellently. I absolutely love the fact that you could unzip the pack from the front for easy access and organise things in your pack, or you could access from the top. Also, the back enclosed zip section was perfect to keep things dry and make it easy to access the things you need to get to during the day. It's really light as well. I ordered the extra lumbar support and belt pockets. I'm not sure about the pack, but I have a chance to try one out when I go to the factory. Lisa says that she saved about £5 on those 2 items alone. Now for a counter view. Jo Lynn Miller says, I have the Z-Packs duplex and I think it is highly overrated. It's cold, it's wet, and it sags when wet. It's not hard to set up, but always needs adjusting. It's a pain to set up in a hurry. It's very fiddly. Most folks seem like they hate to admit its faults because of the price. It seems like a status symbol on the trail. If I were you, I would certainly look elsewhere. Let me say again, it's gold. It's basically a tarp over you. It's great to carry, but that's about all I can say for it. See you on the trail. Now, does anybody have any doubts about what Jo Lynn thinks? It's funny, isn't it? 2 such violently contrasting views which only go to provide the old maxim of hiking your own hike. Z-Packs works for Lisa, while Jo Lynn cannot stand them. Now the last couple. This time, it's for a Gregory pack. Crystal Glynn suggests that when I get back to the States, I should take a look at the Gregory Optic pack. She has the woman's version and says, it's a great compromise between weight and features. Gregory isn't exactly known for ultralight packs, but I'm a person who finds that Osprey packs just don't fit right. She goes on, it has real suspension, a removable brain and a few pockets, but not 15 pockets. There are two sizes, 48 and 58 litres, and I believe the 58 weighs just over 2.5 pounds. It does have hip belt pockets as well. Well, I'm going to look at the Gregory again. They didn't let me down before, and if I can find one that helps reduce my weight, then I'll be seriously considering it. By the way, before we go, I also want to thank Steve Flanagan, who found a brand new ULA circuit with an extra long torso length for $100 on Craigslist. He even sent me the link. I think that the waist size was a bit too small for me, but thanks a lot, Steve. I appreciate it. So there I am. If I had to pull the trigger right now, I'd probably go for the duplex and probably for one of the Osprey packs. But as I don't have to decide just yet, it's been great to have had all this input. Thanks so much to everybody who's reached out. Finally this week, Ellie and Colin have found one another once more and are at last getting to understand the power of the Camino. While it's been tough reading about my mate's troubles at that time, it's lovely to hear that he and Ellie are starting to enjoy themselves, even if it's right near the end of their journey. I'll see you next week. Chapter 27, Day 26, to Prodigy together. Colin. And there she is. I stumble out of the bar where the ancient barmaid is still shouting what she'd like to do to Roberto Carlos if she had a couple of balloons, a packet of maraschino cherries, and some whipped cream. Hey, Krusty. It's my sidekick, Tonto. She looks 10 pounds lighter since the Storger, and it's good to see her. I missed her. I missed her constant snacking and a goofy grin and Birkenstock sandals and dodgy knee and determination. I missed the company and our conversations over coffee. I missed her obsession with getting to Santiago. I just can't find the words to say so.
Ellie, stuck somewhere between here and there. Finding Krusty's familiar face in a street full of strangers is an unexpected surprise that brings with it a warm and very welcome sense of relief. It may be the buzz of wine vaporising brain cells, but it feels like weeks have passed. And one look at Cole's face tells me he has done it tough throughout our time apart. White lines across his forehead suggest he spent the last 2 days frowning in the sun. His t-shirt has not been washed. By the strong scent, neither has he. And the end of his prize pilgrim stick is beaten down to a frayed daisy. The tip of it is 2 inches shorter than it was in Astorga and turns out 360 degrees like the face of a flower. He barely says a word, but it's still nice to see him. Following hugs and a few smiles, it is straight back to business, and, half-tanked, I follow to Villafranca, hoping we'll spend some time catching up over dinner. The rest of the day we wander along scenic mountain trails. A church floats on distant clouds, an elaborate old house hangs on a far-off cliff edge. Hills lush with greenery tumble down on top of each other into the horizon. Arriving in Villafranca, however, is not the end of our day. Rather than stopping for the night as planned, we are turned away at the front door of another full albergue. In a cruel blow, even the tent city across the road is full up. With no other choice but to walk on, Cole buys us both ice cream and we set off out of town. The distance doesn't bother either of us anymore. We both feel we could walk all day and night if we had to, until we reach Santiago. From here it would take 3 full days, but we are back in the mountains and suddenly it is cold again. I cross my fingers and hope it doesn't rain. Nothing dries in damp air, and a pack is just too heavy to lug when it's wet, as are your legs. Dry, my cargo pants already weigh over 1 kilo, pockets full of snacks double that, and when they're wet, I can barely keep them up. The next town is Prodigy, an unappealing hamlet set in the deepest part of the Val de Valsacel, 7 kilometres through the mountains. It's getting dark. We have no choice but to stay here. After finding the albergue there also overflowing with weary bodies, we stop at the town's only bar, which supposedly has some limited accommodation. I don't get a chance to find out, however, as my attempt to ask the female owner how much for a room goes horribly wrong, and I really thought my Spanish was improving. It appears we are homeless for the night, and as darkness descends on the valley, I stand outside, looking up towards the fortune of stars suspended in the night sky, and count each of them as times I have wanted to give in, not just along the Camino, but in life. I wonder why it's easier now to keep going than to quit. I suspect Colin is asking himself the same question. He had every reason to throw in the towel weeks ago. He thinks he stayed for me, but the truth is, he's stronger and more stubborn than he knows. Perhaps that's why I feel so much for him, and why we relate. Beneath all of his sarcasm and cynicism, his strengths and weaknesses, his decisions or regrets, lies a simple man with simple needs. To love and be loved by others or just by himself. Isn't that at the heart of every human being?
Colin, the Alberg Torquemada. In the days apart, we've both noted how the whole atmosphere of the Camino has changed. It's just a race for beds in the albergs now, which open early, 11 o'clock, and are already full half an hour later. So when we arrive late that afternoon, in the rain, at a place that sounds like purgatory, it is no surprise that we are turned away from the only alberg in town. At purgatory, I look through the register in reception. The pilgrims sleeping here tonight have walked from Astorga, Ponferrada, Leon. Most of these bastards have only been walking 2 days. I feel a growing sense of outrage. Suddenly, Ellie and I are part of an elite group, hardened veterans who have now been walking nearly a month, and now we can't get our beds because of a bunch of sissies who haven't even worn their boots in yet. We try to book into the local bar. I leave Ellie alone with the owner for 2 minutes, and by the time I get back, the woman is shouting at her from the door, "Get out, get out!" "What do you say, Terrell?" "I don't know." "You must have said something." "I didn't, honest." I'm later told by an English-speaking local who witnessed the incident that rather than asking the female bar owner how much for a room, Ellie had inadvertently asked how much for your body. There's nothing like calling a Spanish woman a lesbian whore to help get a room in a crowded village. So we go back to the albergue and throw ourselves at the mercy of the hostelero. He doesn't have any. He's a Catholic. His forefathers used to heat irons for the Spanish Inquisition. But finally one of the Spanish pilgrims intervenes and pleads for us to be allowed to sleep in the garden. It looks like it will rain again soon, but at least the barbecue pit is under cover. Hostelero Torquemada relents, providing we pay him just as much as we would have done for a bed inside. Included in his Christian charity is a cold shower, which the next day spreads a raging infection to a blistered welt on Ellie's foot, and bad drinking water that gives me the squirts, all for €3. God bless them. I opt for the cement floor of the barbecue pit. It has a roof and I have an airbed. Elle takes her chances with the rain and a kindly donated blanket, tossed in pity out of a window by a fellow pilgrim when the hostelero isn't watching, on a flat patch of garden grass. Interestingly, not one of the outsiders is Spanish. I wonder if it's like this in heaven. Are all angels swarthy and excitable? We're so close now. If Prodigy isn't purgatory, it is, at least, the beginning of the end. Chapter 28. Day 27. Prodigy to Alto de Pollo. Colin, getting the hell out of purgatory. I don't want to do this anymore. I could have happily quit on the second day. This journey has not been what I had anticipated, but I made a promise to Elle, and for reasons of her own, my presence seems to be important to her. We're the two musketeers, all for one and one for both. The one thing that I'm sure of is my physical endurance. I can do this now that my feet are healing, if not for anything else, but for Ellie. My tenderness for her grows, this long, complicated, blistered, feisty bugger of a woman. I want her to go all the way, and I want to be there to see that she does. It has stunned and amazed me that we still have a relationship after my behaviour these last few weeks, my outburst in Lyon. She has seen the very worst of me and seen me broken. Yet still she seems to see something worthwhile in me, without the mask and the control games. What that is I cannot begin to understand. It is the first time in my life I have let any woman see me defenceless, and her acceptance of my failings has changed my view of the world somehow. We leave purgatory along the highway, walking cold and stiff like zombies. And here's the sight first thing in the morning. A man wearing a Petzl headlamp, 2 ski poles, Ray-Bans, knee-high hiking socks folded twice, fluoro cycle shorts and a backpack the size of a baby's fist. The obsessive-compulsive on pilgrimage. I feel shabby and overdone groping along in the dark with my homemade walking stick and a backpack that looks like I have Brazil in it. The silhouette of the mountain looms from the fog like the interlocking paws of a giant cat. Ellie lopes ahead. She has a new walking stick and she is twisting it from side to side and over her head. She thinks I can't see her in the dark, but now she stands revealed. Elizabeth Bess is, at heart, a frustrated cheerleader. At first light she stops to lean against a wall and rips off her sock. 3 viruses, as yet unknown to medical science, spill all over the stone wall. Doesn't look good, Elle. She pops one of her blisters and we are greeted by my mother's favourite dessert when I was a kid, custard with raspberry jelly. Think you've got a real problem there, Ellie, she murmurs, which just about sums it up. Privately, I still don't think she'll make it. Especially now, the closer we get, the more her body protests. The psychological blow may be terminal. It looks so wretched and wrong. I don't even crack a joke to try to cheer her up. After so many physical setbacks already, I wonder if this might be the last straw. She'll be all right, Ellie says, splashing on a ridiculous amount of both betadine and mercurochrome. Some pilgrims overtaking us think the mercurochrome is running blood and pass out on the road. Ellie puts her sock back on, flicks the real excess blood on the stone wall until her socks are dryish, and straightens her backpack. "Ready, Freddie?" she says with a brave if unconvincing grin. We take off back up the mountain. We start to climb the cobblestone lanes that look like green tunnels. They have roofs of green branches, moss green and dew heavy. The walls are made of pieces of slate placed end to end like piled gravestones. Heriris is a typical Galician village. It looks and smells like shit. Cabbages the size of small trees spill over slate walls. International flags hang above a street redolent with cow dung. A woodshed leans drunkenly against a wall. Wooden balconies, minutes from collapsing into the street, sag from stone houses. The rush of a stream drowns out every sound. You can smell river peat and mould and cold. It looks as I imagine it did 500 years ago, except for the white plastic chairs and the San Miguel umbrella that sits outside a hovel not unlike Shrek's outhouse. The houses are like farmers' houses all over the world. Crap everywhere, rustic charm juxtaposed with the pragmatic things of farming life. Rusty machinery, bright mandarin fertilizer bags, black plastic. The chimneys leak white smoke. The houses themselves are built of grey shale and mossed grey tiles. Stones perched on the apexes of the roofs to keep the loose slate tiles in place in a storm and break up the snow in winter. The walls are overgrown with wild blackberry. Around a corner we stumble on an ivy-covered cottage with bright pink stucco and brand new aluminium windows. Next door, their neighbours live in a barn that almost fell down 100 years ago. "You can make a mint here," Ellie says, sounding like Bill Hunter in Muriel's Wedding. "Rich Spaniards are buying these places up for weekenders. They're right on the Camino, and the Camino's been here 1,000 years. It's not going anywhere, and if a pilgrim dies on your doorstep, the value goes through the roof. I reckon you and me should invest in one, Krusty." As we walk, we see no one but pilgrims. It is like a Disney movie set. Except for the detritus of modern pilgrimage, which now starts to litter the route. Aquarius orange fizz cans and Fontaneda cookies. All the villages smell of manure and shit drips through the streets. We are crowded and shepherded by stone walls, howled at by dogs. Strangers in a ripe land. A woman steps out from behind a pile of cow shit and offers us a steaming pancake, throwing the towel aside from the plate like a conjurer producing a rabbit. A man on a donkey squeezes us against a wall. He has a battery sitting on his lap to power the cattle prod in his right hand. Clouds billow up from the valley to meet us. We know we're in Galicia because of the rolling green hills and the rain. It starts raining almost the moment we step across the border. Wherever you look, there is green, every shade of green. Jade green, pea green, dark green, light green, greeny green, just green. Another stalk of the W word in sight. And we hear cowbells. We have not heard the sound of cowbells since the Pyrenees. I see a cow licking another cow's head while she munches contentedly on the grass. I feel a pang of loneliness. This is what I miss about being single again. Not just having my head licked, but feeling such affection from someone else that I'd want to lick theirs back. "Ellie, will you lick my head?" "What?" "Lick my head, will you?" "Col, you're scaring me again." "I'll lick yours." We come out of a leafy green tunnel at the foot of the mountain, loping up the ascent like mountain goats. It is again a shock to realise how fit we are. We have been walking nearly a month now, and most of these people have been walking just 2 days. Halfway up the hill we stumble across 1970. 2 guys with dreadlocks and 1,000-yard stares are making hash pipes on the steps of a fall-down cottage. They have a cloth laid out on a trestle table selling everything a pilgrim needs: towel necklaces, crucifixes, and hash pipes. They are doing a good trade from the invading army behind us. This is no longer a pilgrimage, this is a frontal assault on Galicia by packs of Spanish kids with baseball caps and blister plasters. A pillage of pilgrims, D-Day of the devout. Suddenly, there are signs for Santiago by the side of the road every 500 metres. Just 205 kilometres left. A long way now from the wooded dales of Roncesvalles. The pilgrims who started in Ponferrada seem to think just getting here is a long way. We lope past them like Ethiopian long-distance runners, lapping the wildcard entry from Papua New Guinea in the Olympics. At the peak, we follow the line of chestnuts and oaks along the ridge to Cebrero. The town is going off. We find ourselves in Man of La Mancha land, a toy stone village with souvenir shops, piped medieval music, and a funky little downstairs bar that plays music videos. We stop for a quick beer in the bar. There's a Spanish soap on the television, and it looks every bit as bad as they do at home. The actors are all impossibly beautiful and as self-absorbed as models in a hair gel commercial. They give each other long looks that seem to say, "I farted, but now I'm going to pretend it was you." The music is from Invasion of the Monster Bananas. There's a mural of Santiago on a wall. He's dressed in traditional style, Captain Pugwash hat with a scallop shell insignia, brown robes, staff with a gourd tied to it, sandals. He looks like Father Christmas back in his whoring days. We decide not to stay in El Cebrero. Too much adrenaline and the overflow accommodation for the albergue looks like the latrines at a biker heavy metal rock festival. It's an hour's walk to the next albergue, which appears to be a pig farm, and it's full. Even the pigs pay to stay there in high season. This is a long way from the homely little albergues out in the middle of the meseta. We look back on our welcomes there with a kind of nostalgia. Here they wouldn't even urinate in your ear if your head was on fire. The pilgrims are a whole different breed also. They are predominantly Spaniards who know the local terrain and have backup. Some families even hire a bus to take them from village to village so they can get a stamp from the local albergue for the Compostela. They bus most of it, so much for struggle and self-reflection. The guidebook told us before we left that you could not be thrown out of an albergue, that no one would ever turn away a pilgrim. They were wrong. Hosteleros will dismiss you like you are a homeless Dero walking up to reception at Fox News and asking for small change. Their lips curl, their noses twitch. You're not Spanish. So you walked 650 odd kilometres to get there. Tell someone who gives a merda. By the time we leave the pig farm, we are exhausted. I have the squirts from the water at Purgatory, and we can barely stand by the time we get to the top of the next mountain. The albergue is full there as well, full of cyclists, which really rubs salt into the wound. We do what every self-respecting Australian would do in an emergency. We go to the bar in the local hotel.
Ellie, countdown or meltdown. Once again, the lessons of patience, acceptance and surrender have returned, as we expected they might. Any sense of control or advantage we thought we'd earned, or by this stage deserved, has been taken away. Whether we are fit now or not doesn't matter anymore. Neither does the fact that it's much cooler and easier to walk longer hours. We've been slowed by the influx of numbers and the race for beds, and we no longer have the luxury of picking our place, marking distance or dotting our day's destination. Just when we thought we were nearing the end, the Camino reminds us that nothing here is yours to claim until it's granted. The rules have changed, and again we are back at the mercy of the way. By 5 o'clock that afternoon, another 4 albergues, hostels and hotels in 3 different villages have turned us away in a period of 2 hours. Having spent a major part of the day hiking the peaks of Cebrero, I've arrived at the end of my tether, tears and all. I throw myself across the bar in shame. The barman takes pity and makes a call to a local woman who runs a B&B a few kilometres out of town. The mother figure who saves us at the summit is a godsend. Just when all seemed lost, we are rescued, cooked for, hugged, and even laughed at adoringly. To someone accustomed to showered guests, I imagine the sight of us desperate and forlorn would be hilarious. It's fair to say Colin and I now look exactly how we feel, dishevelled and tragic. If only the Man Booker Prize judges could see us now, we'd be nominated out of sympathy. After 24 hours of rejection, it is so nice to feel welcomed, wanted and loved, albeit by a complete stranger who charges us for the luxury. Poor Cole picked up a stomach bug in Purgatory that was well and truly set in throughout the day. He's as white as a bedsheet and as steady on his feet as a toddler taking its first steps. Like a toddler's, his stomach and bowel have been just as unpredictable. I spent the day walking upward. The minute we arrive, he sheepishly locks himself away in the bathroom. I wander through the house and can't help but feel we have been plucked from a crowded Camino and dumped in a nature resort. It's like somewhere you'd go for a cosy weekend away. Not another pilgrim in sight. In the cottage, I watch fascinated from the first floor bedroom window as our host does the rounds of neighbouring houses, collecting fresh produce for our dinner. sliced jamon from the lady next door with piglets, queso from the family across the road with cows, half a dozen huevos from the hen pen 2 doors down, and tomates from her own garden on the way back to the house. The clustered hamlet is an organic supermarket. From my first floor bedroom window in Melbourne, I used to watch a succession of men slipping discreetly in and out of the front door of the brothel across the street. That too was interesting to watch, but in a different kind of way. Colin has only just ventured out of our room as Maria, our surrogate mother, and I begin preparing dinner. Almost on cue, he turns a flattering shade of olive green and about faces. She makes him a cup of manzanilla tea and orders him straight to bed. In spite of the circumstances, he is the happiest he's been in weeks. Sheepishly grinning, cracking jokes again and laughing at his own expense. The frown on his face has eased. After the mess of mixed emotions we've endured in the last 30 days, it's as if the squirts are the final straw. If you don't laugh, you'll cry, and on the Camino, you do both. We've climbed the final peak, and what's more, we did it easily. The Meseta feels like a year ago now, and Roncesvalles another lifetime. Colin and I have come a long way in a physical sense, and in other ways as well, and with it, our friendship has grown beyond the hardships. The time apart has served a worthy purpose for us both. Maybe it's the thought of being so close to the end, but Colin seems almost relieved.